Dave and Aaron in a little riff session today. Got myself, Aaron Matthews with Alta CXO, Dave Munger, old friend, coming together to talk a little bit about the things that have impacted us that we've learned from business over the years. I think between us, Dave, we've got 40 some odd, a lot of years of business experience.
Something like 30 for me.
So yeah, like over 50 years of business experience
Yeah.
between us. I can't believe we're that
Yeah.
old, but we
I
are.
know, right?
Uh,
Fair enough.
so we wanted to talk today about the things we've learned over all these years because kids now starting out, reality is we all live the human experience and we all have to learn ourselves. And so I'm a big one for I love learning from others. And this is our opportunity to just kind of talk through some of those things we've learned and get different perspectives. And hopefully that's a different perspective for you. So, Dave, I know
Hopefully.
we had we had talked a little bit about this. You said you had a couple things
Yeah.
prepared. So let's go ahead and if you'd like to start out, what's the top of your
Sure.
mind today?
So I'm going to say I suspect. So I want to put it in a little context first about where I'm coming from, and my guess is we haven't talked about this first, but my guess is I don't think we're going to be far apart. We're probably going to have different nuances of pretty similar values.
Yeah.
Is my guess just from what I know of you. I will say so just to set expectation. My perspective. I'm not a money guy. My perspective is not about how to maximize profit. I also that's getting into the first value here is that I think sustainability is important. I think that environmental impact is important. I think that human impact is extremely important. So, in other words, you're running a business. What impact does this have in 360 degrees on all the human beings involved? Customers, suppliers, clients, employees, managers, wherever you are in that org chart or whatever. Um, my perspective is, first of all, perhaps radical to some in today's America. Profit's not the number one thing. Let me rephrase that. It may be the number one thing in a group of them, but it's not the only thing.
Hmm.
It should not take away from the other things you wind up unsustainable. So the word I landed on was integrity. I like this word
Mm.
because it can be used in many ways. The integrity of the product you're making. Are you actually trying to provide a value for the money spent on your product or service? So this is my orientation. I even wrote this out. The job of a business is to provide value in return for payment, not just to make as much money as possible. This is also true of an employee. Their job is to provide value in return for payment, not only to just claw their way up to the top. I see this one thing where missions are fuzzy because people don't bother to build in those values or encourage them at a managerial or a cultural level. And so you wind up with employees that aren't necessarily interested in doing the best they can do for the paycheck. And I'm not saying like employees owe everything to the employee. You have to knock yourself out. I'm just saying that, hopefully you're interested in doing a reasonably good job. Hopefully you're interested in contributing to something because you are being paid something. Just that
Yeah.
simple, right?
Yeah.
Not that you are there to get paid necessarily more. Now, I'm putting this in a general context. I'm not talking about people struggling with poverty and things like that. Those people deserve to make a living wage. I'm not saying that they don't. But I am saying that, maybe it's a good idea to focus on doing a good job instead of kind of bypassing that and clawing your way to the top. And where I've seen that be a
Mm.
problem is, again, it may have made the company a lot of money, but from my perspective, an inferior product was made in several projects I worked on when everything was breakneck pace because some person, this happens a lot with certain types of
Yeah.
companies, middle manager comes in, wants to get promoted quickly, wants to
Mm.
get a project out very fast, have it be a quick win, and then they don't live with the consequences. They get promoted out of that department or above that
And
department
leave it to
or
someone else
laterally,
to clean
or they
up.
get laterally moved, or they get a better job with a better offer based on that in their resume now. And yes, they leave it to someone else to clean up. This is not integrity. This is an employee not having integrity, right? To me, a company doesn't have integrity when it tries to reduce value, tries to fatten its margin purely by reducing value without reducing price.
Hmm.
Those games, and there's a word for it now. I don't know if you bleep these in your podcast, but this one is an official industry word. I'm just going to go ahead
Right.
and use it in shitification, right? I'm just going to use that word.
Interesting.
Have you heard of this phrase?
I haven't. No.
Oh, really? So the tech world is a buzz with it, and actually, it's crossover in popular culture. It means like take Facebook. Facebook isn't necessarily easy to use for what, say, I want to use it for. I want to get on there and see what my friends are doing, and maybe I want to do a little business with my side DJ business and stuff like that. Put some ads out or something. Hey, bars, I run karaoke on a KJ. If you don't have, you got a night you want me to come in. Facebook is great for that, but it fights me on it. It fights me because I'm a product on Facebook, except when I buy ads. Right? When I buy ads, I'm actually patronizing them. But otherwise, I'm being productized. And over time, you look at how these social networks work, they get less and less easy to use. They start to do things people don't like much anymore. But now you're in a captive ecosystem.
Yeah.
That's not the kind of integrity I'm talking about. So yes, I'm saying Facebook lacks some integrity. I'm openly saying that. So do most big businesses. I'm not necessarily singling them out. It's just a common problem in American business. So that's kind of what I've seen, what I think I've seen during my lifetime, and I can't speak to other things about advice on finances. I don't know stuff about that, about advice on a productization or other business heavy stuff. Not my bailiwick, but I think this one principle kind of, at least in the past several years, has wound up guiding me too. And a lot of times I look at it and I can have a very fragile ego. And I have autism, or I'm autistic. People prefer different terms based on whatever. I'm autistic, right? So I also tend to have this, my way of doing this is right. It's right. And every little thing about it is right. And I can prove it. And I can go get your research. And I get really annoying because I have no sense of, is this appropriate? Is this important? I do now. I'm developing coping strategies, right? Stop and ask myself now, is this important? Does this matter right now? Am I unnecessarily making waves? What are the priorities? What's the, like, in other words, am I making this about me and my need to have things this way? Or am I putting value back out for customers, for clients, for stakeholders?
That's how you define then the integrity, is making sure you're providing the value that you're getting remunerated for.
Right. And the reason it's so important to me is because I think everyone, not everyone, at every level of American business, this is an unpleasant trend that I see. And it's so big when it comes to consumer products. It has this vulgar word that's entered the popular consciousness which is gentrification, which they even use in news shows now. They talk about it. It's just everything gets worse. So disruption, for example, disruption for its own sake was the rallying cry of Silicon Valley for decades. And I was down with it at the time. We didn't see it play out yet. It's like, yeah, is Uber cheaper than a taxi? Is it a better business model for everyone involved? I'm not sure, but I doubt it. What about the disruption of video? Oh, that's great. We'll operate on venture capital at a loss for several years, getting people onto our video platform, say Netflix or whatever. Mm-hmm. And now we're going to just start jacking up prices and removing features. And now you can't share your account. We're going to remove how many you can share. We're going to knock 4K up to a higher tier. No one likes this, but we're in their market now. And we want to watch the shows everyone's talking about. So what are we going to do?
That's like what my wife and I have done. We've just unplugged from all of them.
Really?
Yeah, because we're like, I'm tired of the game, because that's the same game.
It's expensive.
That's the same reason I unplugged from my internet provider, was because they just kept like jacking the prices up, and I'm like, you know what?
Oh.
So now I'm like, I'm with Google, and they're like, oh, same price, and I know exactly what I get. It's simple, easy. Boom.
They're an ISP? I actually didn't know they were an ISP.
Well, because they have the Google Fiber in a lot of cities, and they just roll it out here in Des Moines.
We just don't have it around here, so I'm not aware of it. Yeah. I love fiber. Unlimited upload is really helpful for me. I deal with media and big programming files a lot.
I'm telling you,
not unlimited, but not having that much slower upload. Drag.
My upload is actually faster than my download.
Oh, I'm moving there.
Yeah, I know, right? Hey,
you got an in-law unit in the back. I'll pay your rent and I'll use your fiber.
Man, I wish.
Anyway, but that's my general kind of unifying theory: integrity in all directions, where we remember that, full disclosure, I have fairly left-leaning political views, but I will die on this hill. Capitalism is not a dirty word, but it needs to be restricted. Competition needs to be protected. Monopolies should not form within a proper capitalist culture. We're not doing it right anymore. It's part of the problem.
No, but we can. That's probably because I know you're on the left. I'm very
too political, probably.
And but
I think we can agree on that, though. That's my point.
Absolutely.
The point of capitalism is capitalism should not be a dirty word that's thrown out because it's being practiced in ways that hurt people sometimes. In my view, that's not actually correct capitalism anyway.
Well, and you look at whether you look talking capitalism, whether you're talking socialism, whether you're talking to communism,
Hmm.
they all can get corrupted. And that's the whole point, is
Also
what's
true.
the best system
Yeah.
to where individual humans can make the best choices for themselves. And that actually, I think, takes us back to that integrity. In
Hmm.
Because I've seen the same thing where it's like, okay, great, you've got a new manager, new director, and they are hired in to usually make something better.
Right.
And so they have to do something, they have to prove their worth.
Right.
And oftentimes in doing that, they find things that maybe they don't quite fully, they're just like, ah, we're going to do this because I need to, because, well, I think it's the right thing. And that's one of the things that actually it goes right
Right.
along with what I have as one of the first things, and that is get buy-in before moving ahead. I'm a big one
Mm.
for making sure to pull
Yeah.
people's thoughts together, because obviously years in project management, projects always fall down when we focus on, oh, we're going to bring this technology in, and we
Right.
the human side of it. And I
Whether you
think that,
like it or not.
yeah, and I think it's the same principle, because
Yeah.
if you don't get people on board, if you don't talk to people, understand, gain the perspective, then as a leader, it looks like you're not practicing integrity. And that leader, and I've talked to plenty
Yeah.
of them, they don't normally, very few of them that I found ever think like they're not having integrity.
Sure.
Most of them think like, well,
That's
no, I
true.
need to do something and this seems like the right thing. And they just get so caught up in their own heads, and they just like, oh, well, I talked to this person and they said it's fine. And it's like, yeah, but you didn't really collectively talk to enough people. Now there's good and bad sides to that too, but that's where I can see, like, when you talk about, integrity, I can also see the flip side of that. Of I've talked to leaders that they don't tend to look at themselves as not having integrity. It's just, no, we need to get it done. And no, we need to meet the budget. We have to do this.
That's true. They have constraints.
And,
Yeah.
and
And
yeah,
those constraints are
and that's,
brutal at times.
yeah, because I think
That's
very
fair.
few, I go back to me, the integrity, I love the original purpose of lean. I don't know if I've shared this with you. There's a guy called Max Brown that he's like managing director of the Shingo Institute, but he teaches, he does a lot of high level consulting in that, and presentations. And one of the things he shared that really changed my perspective is, in original Japanese culture, there's a lot of pride. And so when
Hmm.
lean thinking, this idea of, streamlining things, making things easier, was brought about, um, it's centered around pride and centered
Hmm.
around trust in people. And are you familiar with the idea of the Anden cord?
Oh,
In
is that the Kanban thing where anyone can stop the process
Yes, yeah,
by
it's not
pulling the
Kanban,
cord?
but it's,
Yeah.
yeah, the Anden
Well,
cord
it's
is,
related to yeah, somehow it's related to Kanban in my memory because
so
it was
think,
adopted in software at some point, so I remember reading a little about it.
yes, yes. So think a manufacturing line. And
Hmm.
the idea is they want people to have integrity and feel comfortable speaking up and pulling the Anden cord to stop the line. Because when in a manufacturing plant, you stop the line, like, it doesn't just start right back up. I
No.
mean, there's usually
Yeah.
processes and things like that. So it's
Sure.
a big deal. In the
Oh, sure.
Japanese culture,
It's lost money. But no
it-
mistake, it's
it's
lost money
it's lost
temporarily.
money, exactly. In the Japanese culture, what happens? The original teaching of lean is, when you pull the Anden cord, managers swarm. But managers swarm with a different thing. In American culture, as we've kind of, I would say, bastardized it a little bit,
Fair.
it's, what did you do wrong? I think we've all seen that. I think
Right.
you've probably
Oh
seen
God.
it in software, in your development. It's like, what
Oh,
did you do wrong?
people have flown into my cubicle
Oh,
countless times, especially when I was a junior dev with that. Yeah. What are you doing to the system?
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's the difference in how lean originally was. In the Japanese culture, because of the pride, their goal as leaders is to make sure they don't go in and say, what did you do wrong? They go in and say, what did we do wrong that we did not enable you to do your job perfectly? Because the
Hmm.
underlying assumption is that as a human being, you want to do a good job, that
Hmm.
and that you want to put out quality. You
Yeah.
would
Dare
have
not to be
integrity.
cynical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the manager's job is not to hold them accountable, but to make sure they have everything they need to be successful. And so
Right.
if they stop that line, that means something happened that, like, either the process isn't right or somebody else did something. Um, and so it's a very different, it's a slight perspective change, but I think it makes all the difference, and it leads back to that integrity, because you're giving people the opportunity to have integrity and you're
Right.
assuming integrity. And when you do that, and I think that that's some of the challenge we have, is we've taken this and we've focused things so much on the dollar and the end of the quarter, and the
Right.
stockholders and everything else, that it causes managers and leaders to come in and say, I have to, like, push something to make my impact.
Right, because pressure comes top
Yes.
down in that type of system. And yeah, no, you make a fair point. I'm making an exaggerated statement to make a point, and I don't mean to like rail on middle managers or project managers specifically at all. Like I said, I call myself out too. I'll have ego driven moments where it's like, well, but I want my solution. That's mine. Like, so I'm calling myself out too. But you make a fair point. The pressure comes from lots of different places. And this kind of raises a question that maybe I would hold both our feet to the fire on, because I don't have an answer. How do we fix it? Like, no one person can really move this mountain, because as you're kind of pointing out, on purpose or not, or at least this is what I'm getting partly out of what you're saying, it's a problem in business culture. I'll say in the West. I was going to say America, probably all over the West, and
I,
probably in the East a lot too. I'm just only speaking to
yeah.
what I know. But I'm probably using the word systemic, where I always get systemic and endemic confused when people use those phrases. But it's baked into the system. It's
Yes.
institutional. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for. It's kind of an institutional problem at this point.
Well, and
So
I
how
think,
can we change it? How do we change it when our stock market is currently driven by, I actually had this in my notes, is pursuit of hockey stick growth is unrealistic, and it leads the
yeah,
American, but this is what we talked about before, the AI bubble. There was the dot-com bubble, there was the toxic mortgages and short selling, and then that whole stew of things that caused the Great Recession. Um, I, I sometimes, and I'm no expert, so you can qualify this for me, right? My impression sitting from the sidelines as a not a super business savvy person, not a super financial savvy person, is it just looks to me like people keep chasing the fantasy of sudden massive wealth, rather than
well,
building things over time. So you have these big prospecting booms of AI, you have FOMO, and whether or not it's going to tank the economy doesn't seem to be important to those powers as it should be, to me, sitting from the sidelines.
that is a really great question, and there's a couple of things that come to my mind. First and foremost, what we're doing now. First, you have to talk about it. That's why
Yeah, true, true.
I love, Max Brown, who I mentioned earlier. I love his message. And in fact, I recently brought him out to our PMI Professional Development Day to speak, because he's one of those people. I heard him once and I'm like, man, if I'm ever in a position where I can bring him back somewhere, the message is so important.
Hmm.
And it's a little bit of evangelizing. I think
Mm-hmm. Fair.
our modern education system is meant for industrial. It was created to create
Yeah.
workers. It was not created
Bees.
to
Yeah.
think, to create independently thinking people that have integrity. I mean, sure, we've all taken,
Right.
an ethics class, but
Right.
that's really approaches it more from a legal standpoint and far less a moral standpoint. And when you talk about integrity, I think it comes back to morals. And part of it's how were you brought up? Part of it's, the fact that our society is more than happy to spend trillions of dollars on, or billions and billions of dollars on, the lottery. and
Right.
and so I think there's those things. When you look at the psychology of what has happened to society in general, those things pull away from your integrity, because
Right.
it is all about, look at how we define success. When you look
Right.
at everything across the board, success is, did you make money? Who do we hold up? And if you're a
Right.
billionaire, I guarantee you can get on any podcast you want, because everyone wants to know
Right.
how you did it. And
Right.
everybody looks at them like they have this, whoo, super like, man, they must know something.
Yeah.
They
And if I can get a
usually,
little close, if I can touch the hem,
yeah.
yeah, I'll
I
get some of the
re-
greatness.
you talk about integrity, and I remembered one of the first times. There's a couple of big leadership books I've read, and I'll say there's one from a very popular former GE executive that I read through this, how he did it. It's one of those, this was like 15, 20 years ago. And I remember getting to a point in there towards the end where he starts talking a little bit about his family. And of course, I think had been divorced, but he talks a little bit about, oh, he did give up some of that time with his kids and all this stuff. And all these good things, I remember that from the book because I remember he didn't really come right out and say it, but you could see behind it like the regret. Because the end of the life, at the end of your life, money doesn't mean a thing. Yeah, people might remember you, but what did you leave for your posterity? Like if you sold your family, sold your soul for money, what does it mean in the end?
Right.
What,
Yeah, this is why I thought we would have similar it's interesting to me
yeah,
that we come to it in different ways, but I thought we would probably have a pretty similar emphasis on enriching humanity as part of the goal, rather than enriching the individual necessarily. Although
yeah.
that's important too. I'm not saying that's not important, it is. Uh, so I totally agree. Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to articulate early in the call. Maybe I can do a better job now. So, it is making a wage for yourself, and let's say you're a business owner, making the ability to pay your employees and the ability to cover your overhead and the ability to make some money yourself, are those things important? Of course they are. Again, capitalism is not a bad thing. I think people demonize the word too much. From my understanding, it simply means that the government does not own all of the businesses. If you really want to reduce it to its simplest form, that's what it means. Private people can own businesses,
Yeah.
right? Private people can accrue income. This is what it means. That's a good thing. Um, that gives people independence. That was part of what revolutionized us away from, originally, away from a more autocratic forms of government being the major form. But anyway, we forget the flip side. It's yes, you should take in income. That's good. That's a healthy sign of a business. You should provide value. Both things are important. If you're only doing this, you're doing half the job. Nobody who wrote about, and even Adam Smith, who people quote a lot, was staunch. And I'm going to get fuzzy. This is dangerous because it's been decades since I studied this stuff in school. But like he would say, like, yeah, you got to protect competition. Competition is the lifeblood of how this whole system is supposed to work. So if you're allowing monopolies to form, if you don't put that in check somehow, like that's where gentrification comes from, a lack of competition, right? No one can go up against these giants now. Innovation can't catch them now.
Well,
Um,
that's what's interesting though is I actually think AI is going to lower the barriers of entry. Now, not for everybody, because you look at something like OpenAI, they have become a behemoth.
oh yeah,
And
they're the
there's,
default in most people's minds.
yeah, I mean, and there's plenty of others, but
Oh sure.
it's actually, I look at the internet, look what that did for music. It lowered the barrier of entry so that anybody can be a musician now. All you have to do is provide value to your audience of what they want. And that's where I see AI now is making it so that anybody can have an idea and can go out, and if you don't know coding, it's going to get better and better to where you can absolutely, in fact you can kind of now stand up an app and sell it, using Replit,
Right.
using Lovable, using any of
People
these
are doing
other
that.
tools. Yeah, people are doing that. And so it's lowering the barriers of entry. I mean, look at us. At one point, I mean, we have a video camera, we have an entire production studio right here. We can live stream on 4 platforms simultaneously. 40 years ago,
True.
this was not possible. And so we can go out
Yeah.
and gain an audience and provide value. And I think that's what AI is going to do even more is democratizing it's democratizing all knowledge. So that if you have an idea and you have an ambition, you can now go take it directly to people. And you don't necessarily need the big overhead.
I don't know if I want to get into the AI thing because I think there are some unique things about those where I might disagree a little bit with some of those analogies,
Okay.
but I also don't want to get into the details of nuances of AI. So maybe I should critique. I'll just make one point very quickly.
Yeah.
I would and I'm not anti LLM. You know this from how much we've talked about it before. I think it shows a lot of promise for specific things, but we agree it's being overhyped right now. However, having an idea is not the same thing as executing on the idea. So I would make a slight distinction. If I have an idea for a song and I tell an AI music production thing, I would like you to write me an Irish country styles, which is a very specific kind of country music that exists within Ireland that blends traditional Celtic music with country music, right? I'm choosing a specific example because it will do it and it'll do it really well. That specifically, and I'll say I want it to be about lost love due to someone having to leave the country for the potato famine in the 1800s. Give me a song and I want it to be sympathetic, but I also want the person to be flawed in the narrative and blah blah blah, right? This all sounds great, but I'm not a musician for doing that, in my opinion. What I am is I am a patron of the arts, paying a system like I would
True.
pay an artist to produce it. But anyway, I've already gone on more about that than I want to say. But I don't
Well,
want to. I don't want to. I'm not
yeah.
necessarily disagreeing with you, even though I'm picking a nit. And maybe that just hits close to home because I'm a musician. But
And I think, well, and
but I
that's
do
not
think
what
it is democratizing. Its ability
yeah.
to pull knowledge together. It's much better than a Google search.
Yes.
That part is democratized. Its ability to deal with my very non-conventional mind and my tendency to spit out a bunch of stuff, and especially what I like best about it is non-linear learning. My little impatient mind doesn't have to wait to read paragraphs of a thing and not know what some of it is. I can just say like stop. I can hit the stop button. It's not a human being. It doesn't care. If I'm doing it over voice, I can say, hold on, stop, 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 stop. I'll interrupt it. And I'll be like, go back. What was that one thing? I don't know what that is. How important is that to know? It's fantastic for that, for neurodivergent minds. It's absolutely fantastic. So I don't mean to disagree with you. I think
No.
there's
I
a
think
lot of promise there.
we have gotten a little bit off, I think, on the
That's my
on our
fault.
original. No, it's I think it's mine too. We always fall into AI because I think it's on my mind constantly. It's what I write about.
Ugh.
But
You can't escape it in the business
you,
world right now
you
at all,
can't.
especially in the tech world. It's all anyone talks about.
No, and actually, you might like my
Yeah.
next article I have coming out. I'm. It's
Okay.
taking a little longer but it talks about exactly that about what we were going to lose. Being careful to not
Yeah,
lose.
that's true. And you have covered that. Yeah, I'm probably
Yeah.
just nitpicking on an example
No.
needlessly. Sorry.
So so lessons or business lessons that I've learned.
Yeah.
One of the things that as I got into leadership, often people make the mistake when they get into leadership that they think like it's all about you. And
Right.
it's like, oh, got into leadership and I need to make the decision. And one of the things I learned early on, because I'm a passionate person, obviously, I have a
Yeah.
lot of opinions,
You
but I
care.
learned that that I have to be careful of my passion and my intensity because it can shut
Hmm.
others down.
Right.
And I've seen
Oh
this
boy, do I feel that one.
so often with leaders that
Yeah.
come in and try and help. But what they don't realize is as soon as the leader in the room speaks, everyone else is quiet.
Hmm.
And so for me, one of the things I really want, the future leaders to realize is your job is not to solve the problem. Not always. Sometimes
Hmm.
it is, but most of the time you don't want to solve the problem because what happens when you solve the problem is you are taking that opportunity away from your team. You're
Ah,
taking an opportunity away from them to grow and to become a team. And you're making them
right.
dependent upon you. So next time this comes around, and I promise you, I've seen it time and time again.
Yeah,
Next time an issue comes around, suddenly they have to come to you for everything.
that's so true. Yeah.
I consulted not too long ago in a company and had senior VPs like talking to me about like, man, my team they're constantly like coming to me. They feel like they have to come to me for everything.
Right.
And in the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, because you've like trained them to do that. because you haven't trusted them. Like, it hurts. They're gonna make mistakes, but if you come down and you correct them every single time, like, it's a really really tough balancing act to have, because you do need to
Yeah.
train people. You can't have them put out terrible work or anything. You
Right.
have to build confidence, and some people, they just, leaders lose confidence in. But sometimes that passion, it has to be reined back so that you can help people build themselves, and you can
Yeah. Yeah.
be.
That's such a good point, and it relates to what I'm been discovering about myself when I talk about, wanting my way or not knowing how to pick battles or not knowing what's important to really get on. And I think part of that too, part of that tendency in me includes a little bit of what you're talking about there, where I just get really passionate about, like, hey, this is such a great way to do programming. We're going to learn whatever, a semantic style, whatever specific thing in programming. And I start to tell all the developers on my team, I'm going to use this. You got to use this. You got to use, and they're not ready for that. Entry
Mhm.
level developers, you don't want to have that conversation. But in my mind, well, they need to produce code that that is right up front. I
Yeah.
will say this also reminds me of someone I like a lot. People don't talk about him much anymore, but in the maybe the 80s and definitely in the 90s was very hot, was Stephen Covey and the Seven
Oh
Habits.
yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember one of them distinctly because it's my favorite one, and it's what you're talking about. Is it's seek first to understand, then to be understood.
Yes.
And most of us don't naturally get that right. We have to learn that because it's human, it's normal and human to want other people to understand.
Yes.
Let me just, this is boring, especially if you're like me and you have ADHD. And it's like, yeah. I know what you're saying, right? But he gives this great example in the book. I still remember it. I almost remember almost nothing else about that because I read it so long ago. I liked all of it, but this one really stuck with me. He talked about someone he knew who called a doctor. Doctor was headed for vacation, didn't really listen very well, gave him the wrong prescription, and then couldn't be reached at all. And the details in the story make it better than I'm putting it, but it
Yeah.
was like just a bunch of confusion because he just
He
wasn't
wasn't
listening
there.
to the patient.
Yeah, he wasn't
Yeah,
there.
he didn't understand the question. He just jumped to a solution.
Hmm.
Or like that's bad because I can't remember why that story seemed so compelling. But the better example I do remember, he talks about getting on a bus or a train, some public transport, and there's someone has a kid that's going crazy, acting up, running around, throwing garbage around, bothering people. And he speaks to the parent. He's like, I'm sorry. And he's nice about it. He says, hey, I'm sorry, could you just take care of your kid? And he admits he was feeling judgmental about the parent. And the parent looks up as if they're coming out of a fog. And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. We just lost their mom today, and I don't even know how to deal
Oh.
with any of this.
It's amazing. On a personal note, that leads to one of the things that I've learned about perspective. All of a sudden, when you say that, like, oh, they just lost their mom today. Like, before that moment, you were like, you could have been like judgmental, and why do they do this, or why
Yeah,
they're not
they should
focused.
understand me. I need this thing
Yeah.
from them.
As
Yeah,
opposed to seeking first to understand and then
right.
seek to be understood. And this is what, every time, I've been working on this for a long time, but every time, you get road rage. I actually,
I hate to admit it, but I
I
do
mean,
more than I'd like to admit.
we all do. We're all like,
Yeah.
oh, that idiot. Every time I catch myself
Yeah.
saying that, I have to try and I still try and remember it, is, wait a second. What if they just got word that their mother died? Or what
Yeah.
if, man, they cut me off because they really have to get to the hospital, or something like that, like, or
Or they just screwed up once,
they just
and this
screwed up,
isn't
like,
normally how they drive. You don't even know that.
like, for me, that's actually because I've done it. So this is where
Yeah.
when people accident, like, cut me off, um I've accidentally done that before to people.
Cut other people up. Oh, sure. I
Yeah,
mean, it
because you're like,
happens.
you try and go over, and they're like, honk at you. And I've realized, like, oh man, I was just like not paying attention at all. Like, or I thought I was, but like my brain was over here, and I looked quick over here, but I didn't see it because they came up just right at the pillar. And so I think of those moments where, you know, I wasn't really thinking, I should probably give them a little grace too, because they
Yep.
probably were just, it's okay. Like, they probably didn't do it on
Yeah.
purpose. And if they did do it on purpose, then they really need to be forgiven, because I don't want to step into that if they did it on purpose.
Yeah. It's when road rage goes wrong. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, that's a more compelling anecdote I shared, but I wish I could remember the doctor one better because it was a better metaphor for what I'm trying to say now. Which is just, I mean,
No,
it's kind
I
of
read
obvious
it.
though. It doesn't really need elucidation. It's like if you don't understand the problem, right? So this is typical in consultancies I've worked in a lot. Sometimes an excited salesperson or account manager will go in and pitch this thing and not have thought it through, and they are thinking in the solution space, not in the problem space. Getting back to AI, actually, that's a handy little tidy way to sum up part of the problem with it. Now, uh, AI is great for solving certain problems, but you got to think about the problem first and how it can solve it. You do not jump to a solution in search of a problem and do well generally. So seeking to understand in my book is actually understanding the problem you're trying to solve well.
So one of the funny things about that, and you say, you haven't read it in 20 years or whatnot, is
Yeah.
the
Oh, the Seven
elementary
Habits
school, the elementary school my kids go to, they like teach it so much so that
to
they have
children.
signs. Yes, they have signs going into the elementary school for each of the seven principles.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Like, so
that's
it's,
interesting.
yeah, it's one of the reasons that I love the school system we're in. But it's
Mm.
fascinating that, you know, kids are they're being given a lot more now, um,
Yeah.
that can, I think, really help them. And I think we're just, as soon as the higher education system really, or really the education system steps up even more, I think we're just going to unlock so much human potential because
Yeah.
of the
I
proper
hope so.
use of AI, that it
Yeah.
is going to be an absolute, it's going to be a boon on the world if, like you said, we can have the integrity, if we don't ruin it first.
Right, right. I like your optimism because I skew pessimistic, and I struggle with cynicism a little bit, and the world is scaring me a lot right now. But to your point, we've been through similar difficult revolutions in the market, in product offerings, and in things like that that have been really disruptive and nearly destroyed the country, and we have wound up learning from it and doing better, and I hope that's what happens.
Yeah.
Like
So
you said, talking about it is part of it. Being willing to get out and say with integrity, "Hey, I like what this is doing, but we got to ask certain questions. We have to. We have to ask these questions,
yeah,
even if they mean maybe someone's not going to get a little bit richer because we asked that question. Like that might be okay. That
that
might be
might be.
okay."
What else is on your list as far as things you've learned over your career?
Collaboration is this is more of a kind of an outworking of things we've already said, I guess, but I think it bears emphasis. Collaborating is healthy, not just between team members, but um, we talked about Agile in one of our talks, and I really do like the at least the founding principles of it, even if we could say that certain methodologies that are inspired by Agile have certain problems or whatever. But the
Mhm.
basic idea that tight feedback loops without a lot of unnecessary red tape are good for a process. They're good for an
Oh,
endeavor. And so if I know how, this is a weakness in Agile, and I always say this, even though I'm a big advocate for it, this is definitely a weakness. It requires you to have very good people on your team who understand how to do this, how to interface with a stakeholder. You don't go, to your point, you don't go asking them 5, 6 questions every single day. Do your job, infer things, come prepared to ask a question. Don't expect the stakeholder to just sit there for a 1 hour. Oh, sorry, we forgot the requirements or we didn't write them down. Let's gather them again. Like, you don't want people like that doing that, right? So people have to learn how to do that, and they don't teach you that when you're learning programming. However, if you can do that, you are a much more effective developer. If you ask the right question at the right time and you don't feel that you have to open a ticket to do it or you have to ask someone's permission. What I'm getting at, again, is collaboration. You should be collaborating with a stakeholder. You should be able to
well,
go right to them and say, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And you should be ready to listen and not be selling them your idea, but just be proposing it, ready to
mhm.
listen when they say, "Well, that might not work because of so and so." Uh, Anything that feels like a collaboration between partners is going to go better, in my opinion, especially clients. When that gets to the point where a stakeholder is a client and you do not treat them like a collaborator, that doesn't go well.
You just mentioned something that I thought you kind of glossed over it there in
Hmm.
collaboration, but one of the things that I want to make sure to pull out is empowerment. You gave an example of you have to empower. that they go out and like
They should feel
can
like
go
they can
and
do it.
can
You
do
got to
it,
feel like that's okay if you do
can
it right.
open the
Yeah.
ticket, can pull the Andon cord, so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. So the reason I know what that chord is, even though I didn't remember the name, is because that alone inspired the dawn of Agile. They were studying Japanese processes like Kanban and other things, not
Yep.
just the Kanban board, but the whole system of Kanban quality. I don't know. I was thinking about today. I don't like the term quality assurance anymore. I think we should
It's
go
the
back to quality control.
so the
But
Toyota
anyway,
quality system, the TQS, I think was what it originally
total
was.
quality.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
that's the
and
one I'm thinking of.
yeah, because it all started with Toyota and what they were doing, but yeah, it's just taken over
And their
everything.
cars notoriously last longer.
Oh, they do. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you
it's
can't help
funny.
but think that might be why.
It's funny you should mention that about collaboration and what you just said, because these are the last three things that I had written down that
Okay,
speak exactly to this.
go for it.
These are things that I've after I got done with my first bout of sprint of leadership, I wrote down a bunch of things that I learned, and these are a couple
Mm,
of them. Said avoid monopolizing conversations.
hmm
Goes to your collaboration. When others are speaking, listen with patience and interest.
mm,
And then this is for me, this one I take very close to the heart because this next one is, I think, one of the things that sets me apart. It's encourage those who are less outgoing to speak up by asking them questions to draw them out.
yeah, that's so important. Yeah, I don't do that enough myself.
Well, and that's something that I have, because I felt, I mean, it goes back to childhood and like didn't have a lot of friends and felt kind of not
Oh,
heard a lot. So I'm very
hmm
sensitive to those that aren't speaking up, and always want to like dig into, hey, what's going on? And what I found is that's made so much difference in meetings
mm.
because oftentimes, we talk about that leader that comes in and then just starts giving the answer, and everybody just listens when they haven't really sought the input of others. And it's
Mm.
so often that person that's just sitting quietly in the corner of the room,
Right.
there's a really good chance they're holding on to that little bit of information that could make all the difference in whatever you're trying to solve or trying to do.
That's so true. And I'm the person who has to be reined in so that person can speak generally. So I'm glad to be reminded of that.
Well, and that's the problem I have too, is I can often, obviously, just kind of go, 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 and don't always
Right.
listen with intent. And so for me, these are important because I
Hmm.
have to tell myself these things.
That's a good reminder for me too. Like I actually really value that you brought that up.
Yeah.
That's a
So,
good thing.
and so I love the fact that that's your next one is that collaboration, because it is,
Yeah. And a collaborative spirit, not just the doing of the collaboration, but a collaborative mindset.
yeah, not
Like,
just
hey,
like,
let's
oh
see
yeah,
what the
I
team
heard you.
thinks.
Yeah, it's not just I heard you and we're going to go in this way anyhow. It's okay, how does your thinking actually, should it change what direction we're going? And if it shouldn't, is that an opportunity to teach you to say, oh, we're not doing it
Right.
because of this and this and this, as opposed to so often leaders are like, no, we're going in this direction and no explanation. And that just decreases trust.
It really does. Yeah. Yeah, it can get tough. This reminds me of an experience I had one company where I was a team lead, and I I had this idea of separating, and this doesn't really matter the details, but I wanted to separate business data from the data about the app itself. So, like, which window is open, or did the user click OK? That is view data, and everything else is business data. This is really helpful for me when I write code. I separate these structures and treat them separately. A lot of people lump them together and have them
Mhm.
all mishmashed into each other. I think they should be very separated. I built a little system because I've always been a working lead, so I also wrote code and function more as an architect. So I'm designing how we're going to do things, right?
Mhm.
So I built this kind of system the other developers could use, where they go one place to get business data and one place to get view data. My team could not get their heads around this. I don't know why. I
Hmm.
do not know why, but it almost single-handedly, the week I rolled it out and asked them to start using it in new components, it almost ground all work to a halt. And I will pat myself on the back. I did quickly see, like, all right, no matter how much I think this works, it's bad for the team. We're not going to worry about it. because it's a little bit of perfectionism right now. We can
Yeah.
address this later. We got bigger problems. Like for once, I actually listened and pulled my little darling idea out of the system. Usually, I'm not good at doing that. What I'm not telling you is the hundreds of other times where I was like, "Well, tough. You got to figure it out." And I wouldn't necessarily. I would just get frustrated. They didn't understand. I wouldn't really sit with them and try to explain it even. You know, I'd just be
Gabe, are
like,
you
"What is
saying?
stupid?" I wouldn't say, "What are you stupid?" But I had that attitude, and people know that. Even if you don't say that, people sense that
Yes,
frustration.
they
You
do.
let that show. People pick up on that vibe and energy. That's why it's even more important to me that it be a collaborative like vibe or a collaborative mindset, not just the doing of it, but altering your thinking paradigm to where you're thinking more that way. What will make the team succeed? Not what is my perfect vision of how to write software, or in your case,
Oh,
my perfect vision of how to manage a project or whatever.
you know, you actually just brought up, I think, one of the most important things I've probably learned in business leadership, and that is it's not about you. Let go of your pride.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Because when you look at like the integrity and the leaders and everything, like pride is what is at the core of all of that, of
Yeah.
all of the
Oh,
challenges
I'll
that we
admit,
talk
I
about.
wanted to brag about that. I've built it into the system, this innovation. Now it's not possible to mix up this data. It's so much safer. Technically, I still believe that's true, but it doesn't matter. It didn't produce a good product. It did not
Yeah,
produce a good product in that situation, and it wasn't going to. I'm
yeah.
sorry to cut you off.
No, no, but this is exactly what it's about. Because
Yeah.
and you just
It's the
bring up
vibe, not just the actions. Yeah.
it is, yes. Like from a customer's perspective, that actually brings up a whole nother thing of what you think. Make sure you know what the customer needs and not just what you think they need
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or
Or
what
what you
they
wish they
think they
needed.
need. Yeah, what you
Oh,
wish they needed.
true. Or what they do. Yeah. Give me a
Yeah.
faster horse. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Give me a faster
Right.
horse. I don't want a car. Why would I want a car? I just want a
Right.
faster
Right.
horse. Or you've
Right.
seen, in fact, just yesterday, I was trying to find it. You've seen I don't think it's a Far Side comic, but it's the comic that has the tree with the tire swing. And it's like, here's what the customer explained. Here's what you thought they wanted. Here's who the product manager thought they wanted. Here's what the engineer thought they
Right.
wanted. Here's
Right.
what they built. Here's what they build for. And
Right.
then here's what they actually wanted and needed was just a rope with a tire swing.
Yeah, you know what? That brings up a good counterpoint because I'm
Yeah.
I'm pushing hard this team-based idea and collaboration, and I do think those are important, but they should not be confused with design by committee, which is extraordinarily wrong most of the time,
Mm.
right? Which is almost what you're getting at. But I will say, design by committee isn't the vibe of collaboration. I guess I would say the way I'm thinking of it. It's more people trying to impress each other.
Yeah.
It's a collection of people going through the motions of collaboration and attempting to impress one another. When I study, so I have a certification in usability analysis, so looking at user interfaces and assessing changes that could make them easier to use. That's all that is.
Love it.
I was very interested in UI UX for a long time. Sorry, it should be UX UI. Some people say experiences first and UI is under that. And I remember learning in that certification training how important like asking the right questions are either in volume through surveys and things like that. If you want volume data, if you want statistically significant data, and you do need that for some reasons, you go through surveys and stuff, or you go through analytics you've gathered automatically on your users, whatever that is. If you
Mhm.
want to reflect on how people are using it or see anecdotal, because anecdotal evidence has its place too. You don't just want to leave it to only one or the other, but they're both important. Sometimes what an interview with a user will give you, so an interview style test is just watching the user use it and ask them questions about what they're thinking while they're using it.
Mhm.
um, you will discover quick insights, strong insights you don't get from the qualitative data. We're talking quantitative versus qualitative data, but anyway, all of that aside, what you will not get in any useful form is having a focus group. They basically said, just don't do a focus group for software. They
Really?
went through all the psychological problems with it. People in the focus group are listening to each other. They're aware of what other people think of them when they're speaking, so they're
Mm.
self-conscious. Um, so many reasons focus groups are a bad way to arrive at product features or product
Hmm.
enhancements. Uh,
I wonder how many
that kind
companies
of collaboration is a bad kind of collaboration
how many
just
companies are
because of the
still out there
constraints.
using focus groups too.
They do. They do. They do, and it can be used for certain things. If you want to see how a group of people sitting in a movie theater is going to react to a movie, a focus group gets a little closer because it's a very
Yeah.
similar situation. You have a group mind. You do not have a group mind sitting down to use a piece of software. So I think there's some. I don't know if that's a great example, but I think there's some places where focus groups can be useful still.
So
But
what's
if
the
you're
better
going
way?
over specific things about products that already exist, it's not going to lead you in a good place.
So what's the better way to do it?
Uh, that gets into, so my specialty is not necessarily in quantitative or qualitative analysis, data analysis. That's a whole area in UX that I'm not
Hmm.
equipped to speak to with a lot of authority because it gets deep and complicated. UX is an entire umbrella of disciplines. I'm good at interaction design specifically. That's kind of what I like the most. What does this
Okay.
page do? How can I make it easier? Um, but the general answer is good informed research, asking the right questions. When you do send out surveys, ask the right questions so you can get clear data from. And then when you assess, especially during usability testing early in the phase of before you have users, that's when the interview test is a great thing to do. Ideally, you have a domain that's not complicated. I'm not trying to make the next Photoshop, say. I'm trying to give someone a new online banking system where it's
Okay.
easy to pay bills or something, right? I
So
bring in a
more
person who
feature
hasn't.
based as opposed to system based.
Yes, that's what I'm good at. That's exactly the right way to put it. Yes, yes, very much so. So you bring in someone to test this who has not seen this interface before. You do not tell them how it works. You give them no instruction. You give them a use case, and hopefully the use case is realistic. You have 3 bills to pay. They are for this. Go in and pay the bills, and then
Hmm.
they do it while you watch. And
Yeah.
you should not ask leading questions. Most people get the interview style test wrong because they ask leading questions. Um, what you want them to do is describe it. So they're like, if they're just sitting there looking at the screen initially, you ask them like, "What are you thinking?" "Well, I'm trying to find a place where do I create a new bill? I can't see it." "Okay." And you
Hmm.
let them struggle. And then you start to say, "Could you do me a favor and move the mouse towards where you would expect to see it? Show me where your eyes and your mind are going." You don't ask them, "Where do you think it should
Ah,
be?" You don't ask them, "Do you think we should even have that? Is there a better way to start this process?" You just have them try to do the use case without leading questions and see. And I have done it. I've done this at companies I've worked at. Some things, it's hard to explain exactly why without concrete examples, and I haven't done it in a while, so I don't have one for you. But something will jump out like, "Oh my gosh, like of course we shouldn't put this button in three." That's a ridiculous example,
yeah.
exaggerated, but like, oh my gosh, we forgot to just put a label on that says what this is, and no one in this entire process noticed when we did the mock-up because we're all too close to it. You'll start to
Yeah.
notice stuff like that.
Yes.
But where most people get that interview style test wrong is they'll start leading. And again, this goes back to integrity. Do you really want to know why the user is struggling, or do you have this kind of tendency to protect your idea? Wait, but this design is good. They just don't get it. Right? And this is another form of collaboration, testing that doesn't lead,
Yes.
testing that kind of meets
Mhm.
a user where they are.
Y-
And you make them feel important. And the great thing about these tests is you should go into it if people have never done them before. And that's what you want. You want people who have not been subject to these tests before. They have no preconceptions coming in.
Yeah.
Then you want to tell them up front, there's no wrong way. You're going to feel frustrated by the software at certain points because it's new. We know it has rough edges. You're helping us find what's frustrating. So when you feel frustrated, that's really good. We want to know about it. You are smarter than this software. And actually, there's a bonus. When people run around feeling frustrated with software in their daily lives, and it won't do what they want, we're telling them, you're not wrong. We want to make this better for you. So this is really important. People actually feel very empowered by it. Most people come out of a good interview test, the test subject, thinking, that was really cool. That's not even the right thing to call the software, the test subject, the test participant, right? The
Yeah.
whole point is they're not being subjected to a test. Um, most
You're really
people kind of
discovering.
most people find it really fascinating, like, oh, like they're part of the process now. And
Mhm.
it's a little less frustrating for someone to be listening. Again, we're seeking first to understand. We're not asking leading questions. We want to know what's actually happening. For the first time in their lives, these people are like, "Oh, someone cares what the fuck I think about." So, oh, I'm so sorry. I
Beep.
have such a potty mouth. Someone actually cares what I think about this software. Like they're not used to that feeling. Someone cares that this hurts to use.
That
I've been doing so good at not cursing for all these podcasts.
it's all good. It means we got down to the natural you. Like we really pulled away the
That's
layers.
true.
We were able
There
to
are no
get
children on
down.
LinkedIn, I guess.
Yeah. You said something about I think it was assuming good intent, or getting um, meeting them where they are. That's what you said.
Right.
Meet the end
You're
user where
not
they
doing this
are.
wrong. The software is wrong. You're not wrong.
Well, and that there are two things that I think kind of end on here
Okay.
is assume good intent. Because when we talk about integrity, when we talk about collaboration, we talk about these lessons we've learned. I think it comes down to assuming good intent and meeting people
Hmm.
where they are. A friend years ago told me,
Hmm.
they gave me this quote, and I don't even know where the quote came from, but a good friend knows where you've been, accepts you for who you are, and encourages you to grow.
I like
And when it
that.
comes, yeah, when it comes down to the work we're doing, I really look at it as we spend honestly most of our time with the people we work with.
Hmm.
And I want to be friends with them because I mean, that's just the kind of person I am because I want to help them grow. And so when I step into leadership, if there's anybody, kids, younger kids in their career listening to this, I hope you take that away that just be a friend to people, be the type of coworker you'd want to have. Be honest,
Right.
have integrity, encourage people to grow. And if you do that, like that focus is going to absolutely set the stage for amazing collaboration as a team.
I love that. And I have a question for you.
Yeah.
As a person who's been more on the business and the management side of it than I have, it occurs to me listening to you, I'm thinking about my cynicism. All through this conversation, I've been thinking about, wow, I look at this in such a negative way, and I really like your positive take on it. It's constructive. Um, and it makes me think I've probably just worked at a lot of difficult places. So I'm kind of filled with this bile. So my question for you is, if I can ask you a closing question, what would you recommend to interviewees? A good question to ask to try to suss out if a potential job is the kind of place where they value that. What are some canary in the coal mine questions that people can't hedge on? Hiring managers can't hedge on, do you think?
Oh my goodness. So it's funny you should ask that because I literally have like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them written out for all the
Oh,
different times
awesome.
I've done interviews and things like that. I could
Yeah,
probably do a small book with them. But I would say number one
you
is,
should, by the way.
I
Do
probably
that
should,
part.
is how do you support your people? Like,
Oh,
what
that's
do you
good.
do? In fact, there was a
That's
job
really good.
I recently talked to someone about, or I talked to them, and there was this line in there that was like, "Oh man, this is a job I could really work at," and most people probably wouldn't pick up on it, but it's let's see. Executive suite. Thrives where others get stuck. Um, but it was about the idea that I'm trying to find it here in the job responsibilities that you're not so stuck on process that you forget to deliver value.
Oh, that's so good.
And they had said something like that in there, and that like when I saw that, I'm like, I got to interview for this because that's the kind of person I can work with and work for because
Yeah,
that's
so
who I
look at value
am.
statements. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what honestly has made me like different in the project management realm is if this like I'm not going to go check a box as a project manager.
Hmm.
If there's something that I'm doing and nobody's like reading this report, nobody's actually going in, if you're doing a lessons learned on a project but you're not using those lessons learned to improve like your project methodology, improve and train other
Right.
people, or make like your future projects better, why are you doing a lessons learned?
Right.
It's pointless. It's pointless.
Yes.
And I've been in organizations where they're like, oh, you've got to go, now that you did this survey of lessons learned, you now need to go spend 30 minutes and just present the lessons learned to everybody, and then we're done. Oh, wait a second. So you're telling me I've got to bring together senior vice presidents for 30 minutes of their time, have a one-way conversation and say, this is what I learned from you. And then we're going to take it and we're just going to put it in the methodology and drop it in there because we need it to check the box so that when they go through
Right.
it, they show that it was done. But you're not actually
Right.
taking this and driving this knowledge into the organization. And I flat
It
out was like,
is.
this is dumb. Like, give me a break. And
Yeah.
let's
To
just say,
seven habitize it, it's like going through the motions of the sharpen the saw habit without actually sharpening the saw. It's like, well, we bought a
yes,
whetstone and we put it over here, so that's good. We don't
yes,
use it, but we have it. Right. And actually, we every time we do this, we buy them. So we have 15 whetstones now, but our saw is dull. Because what happens in in my experience, what happens with those lessons learned documents is they just keep getting longer and longer, and they're a circular file for by any other name. You just throw them in there and forget about them, and then
yeah,
later someone's going through and comes in, they're like, why do we have 100 principles for software development? No one can remember that many.
100%. Like, it's, there's only so much people can think in their brain. Like, you have to build a
Yeah.
culture. That's why
Right.
agile is so important, is because you're building in the way you want the team. Every day you're having that stand
Hmm.
up, whatever it may be. And in that stand up, you are focusing on what's important and you're building in a structure that allows people to speak up and be themselves and
Yeah. Pull the
things up.
cord if they need to.
Pull the end in court.
That's the opportunity. Yeah.
And that's part of why agile, I think, is so much better in some ways than waterfall. Because in waterfall,
Hmm.
you have a project team that you're meeting together to report back, but I mean, that may be one of 5 different teams that you're on. And I,
Right.
I've been in so many organizations that, like, this PM doesn't run things the same way as this PM. They have different meeting formats, they have different meeting minute formats, they have different
Right.
reports, and you're like, well, no
Right.
wonder leadership doesn't know what's going on. You're not speaking the same language. You drive things totally differently.
Yeah. It's ceremony. It becomes ceremony
It
and
becomes,
nothing else.
yeah, and that's the challenge even with agile, is does it some can it just become ceremony and
It's a
people are
big problem with
really
Agile.
engaging?
Yes.
So I mean, there's good, there's bad. The reality is
Yeah.
you have to drive value and you have to see people for who they are and encourage them. You have to be that good friend, know where they've been, accept them for who they are, and
Yeah.
encourage them to grow. And that's
Yeah.
what a true leader does.
Yeah, I agree. And I think of it as 360 degrees of value.
Yeah,
The customer should get value. The company should get value. The employee should get value. The manager should get value. Everyone involved should be enriched by this. That's the whole point.
yeah. So this was one of the things that they had in this job description that I think it really hit me, that it was partners effectively across functions while constructively challenging assumptions and legacy practices. Like, that that right there for me, that was when I had read that, that's what stood out to me, like, oh, you don't want the status quo. You want to challenge the status quo. You want to actually move forward. And I'm like, that's a
Yeah.
place to work.
I have worked at places that had those types of things written down, but in reality, that wasn't really what was happening on the ground. Um,
Yeah,
it
they'll say
occurred to
these
me
are our
too.
values. These are our values, but we
Right.
don't actually practice them or encourage them.
Right. So, having worked in tech for a while and definitely through and beyond the dot-com boom, I am used to certain cliches that hiring managers will trot out in interviews, and one of them is we work hard and we play hard, which isn't a way. When
Oh,
that's the answer to the question I ask is, I have better questions now. My question was too vague. I have learned what do you guys do to ensure work-life balance? This is a consultancy.
great
Consultancies
question.
generally want. I always ask. I don't always like the answers. But I'm like, consultancies kind of need a lot of hours out of people because you bill by the hours. That's how you make money. So my question is, how do you look after work-life balance? And the hiring manager guy said, well, we work hard and we play hard. That is a thought terminating cliche. I realize at some point, if you're familiar with that terminology, that's a specific term that's used and means a specific thing. Thought terminating cliche it means it sounds like a good answer, but you're not supposed to think beyond it. It stops the conversation, and they're effective until you start to learn to get around them. And I wish I thought of it at the time. Years later, I thought, if anyone ever asked me that again, I'm going to say, that's great. That aligns with my values. Can you give me an example recently where a team really worked extra hard and then you gave them a way to play extra hard? And
Yeah.
what were these two
Yeah.
things? And I
Yep.
actually I have to be honest. Again, I'm cynical. Many places will have no answer to the second question because they don't even really mean the thought terminating
Yeah.
cliche.
Yeah, we play hard because you might get a few hours on the weekend that you don't
We
have to
joke
do it.
around and we have a Pac-Man machine in the break room,
Yeah, I
and there's
mean,
free and there's free soda,
yeah,
that kind of thing. That's not playing hard.
yeah. That for me, one of the other things that I like to ask is, tell me about your leadership style,
That's good. That's
because
really good. Yeah, that's
I
bold
found,
too,
well, it is, but
in a good way. In a good way.
I mean,
I
you
would be
can,
impressed if someone asked me
you,
that question. I'd be like, "Oh, I'm impressed." I don't even know if I know how to answer it, but I'm impressed with the question a lot.
and this is one of those things as well as I do that like the right manager will make or break you,
Oh yeah,
100%. Like they are the ones that are going to either encourage you and help you grow or absolutely leave you on the vine to die.
yeah.
The other one I really like is, what kind of person will be most successful in this role?
Oh, that's really good. This is what you should be doing: interviewing the company, interviewing the hiring manager back. That is also a form of collaboration,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
just trying to sell yourself to them, but it's more
Yeah.
like collaborating on what filling that role would be like for each of you involved in that equation. That should be the real question, not would you please make me an offer. I just feel good if someone makes me an offer. I feel like I won.
Yeah.
Even if I'm not going to take the offer, I feel like I won.
Yeah, 100%. It's it's not about the money. Like I've had so many companies ask me like, "Oh, well, what do you charge?" Or and it's like, "Well, it can be flexible because I'm really focused on value." It's like, what are the problems
That's
you
good.
have? Not just the problems and challenges to make sure they know I align to them, but how do you support people in those?
Yeah.
And and I've gotten to the point where I don't even have to ask a lot of these questions anymore because I can kind of you can see the question behind the question. You can kind of gauge as they answer things. You just
Hmm.
see, exactly
You'll
what they're
start to
talking
see
about.
the
You can
trend.
see it. You can see whether
Hmm.
they are saying the things that align to your values or not. So to me, it's not. But as you're starting out, I didn't understand these things. I didn't understand how to ask these deeper questions, and it's like you're like, oh, I just want a job. I don't know, but these like just a job is, if they don't support you and you can't have like impact in your job and do your job well, um, that's going to impact your next job and your next job
Yeah.
and your next job.
Maybe this should be our next talk: how to conduct interviews and what are good interview questions when you're an interviewee. Because I've got scads of opinions. Having been on both sides of it, I have scads of opinions about that.
Well, that's a great idea. We can certainly tee that up. Look, we are just over our hour. So,
Yeah.
did you have any other closing remarks? Any other thoughts, Dave?
No. I'll apologize for being, a little bit rambunctious at times, but
Buddy, that's why we get along so well. We're both rambunctious. We
maybe,
both love
maybe.
to go. Oh
It's
man. Well,
hard for me to behave. I try to behave. It's difficult.
hey man, I accept you for who you are and encourage you to grow.
Sure. And if it's the worst, right, right. That's such a good. I hear you making that as a joke condescendingly, but if it's said with sincerity, that's such a good way to
It's
look at it. It
true.
really is. I
Yeah.
really like that.
There's no judgment. I don't hold it against you. And that's probably my parting thing of wisdom for leaders is, don't be the
Mm,
kind of leader that just because somebody messes something up, you write them off forever.
right.
No, see who they can be, not who they are.
I also believe very strongly in the redemption of people who are perceived as problem employees. And I have had friction with managers above me when I have done that. A big thing with me is I want this person to succeed. This is if they're junior. I mean, if they're a senior level person, I expect more. But if they're coming in without much of a background or they're green, like I'm very invested in giving them achievable goals. I don't want to. A lot of people think, oh, trial by fire, throw everything at them. Like, but no one can process that much information at once. I believe in giving achievable goals, and I believe if they start having trouble, if it's a team, and this is radical, a lot of people would disagree with me. A lot of people would disagree with me. But if this is a team, and so there's enough people to take up the slack, I want to give them a chance. There's work they can do. We shuffle the work around differently. And if someone's upset with me about it, I go have a talk with them on the side. Like, you don't need to be worried. The fact that I'm not tailoring work for you means that you're a very valuable member of this team.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do is give this guy a chance to succeed, to see if there's a way that they can contribute to the team that we're not seeing, or if if our heads are butting a little bit, and if I'm patient and calm and I pair program with them for a minute, I unlock something I didn't even realize was a barrier for them in understanding what I was saying, because like we're
Yeah.
saying, I listen, I spend time. I don't immediately, like the probation thing, I do not like. Probation for me is not necessarily a bad, where the dictionary definition of the word just means like, well, we're looking at you and giving you a chance to make up for whatever seems
Oh,
to be
like that.
perceived as
Here,
wrong.
we're gonna test you, and then we can just like fire you at a minute if we don't like you, kind of
We're
thing.
setting you up to fail versus setting you up to succeed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, there are constraints that I can't control, that are out of my hand. There are reasons for that. People don't want backblow lawsuits, so they don't, you know, this is a whole other topic. We're getting into next week's topic, I guess. But all I'm saying is I believe in setting people up to succeed. I even believe in giving underperformers a chance to catch up within
Yep.
a reasonable window. Now, you can't do that forever just because you think they're your buddy. Like, they need to hit that goal. It needs to be something they have to reach for. It can't be too easy. But that's going to success begets success. That starts to set them up for cascading success. And the opposite sets them up for cascading failure.
I love. I think I may have shared this with you about Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA. His
Maybe
philosophy. Do you know who
my
Jensen
memory
Huang?
stinks. No.
So Jensen Huang started out literally sweeping the floors at NVIDIA. He was a janitor,
Really?
and he's
Oh,
now the CEO.
wow.
Phenomenal, phenomenal guy. And one of the things he has said is he doesn't fire people. And the
Interesting.
reason he doesn't do that is that he would rather torture someone into greatness than give up on them. He's like,
Wow.
so basically, he's not going to fire you. You're going to, because everybody wants to do a good job. It goes back to that lean thinking, that assumption, that,
Yes.
that assuming good intent. And so
Yes.
I love the fact that he says that it's really about people. All people are great and can have impact. And really,
Yes.
if they're willing to work at it, you'd never fire anybody, because if they're willing to work at it, like, you build so much. That's the culture that I want to be in, that I want to be
Right.
part of, that I build. When I build a team, that's the culture I build. And I love
Yep.
that.
Yep. Yep. And I have struggled with it at times. I have. I've done things like in a code review, said to somebody, we've talked about this, never do this again.
Yeah.
That's the whole terse statement. And it's clear that I'm irritated and I let it come through. And that's not investing in someone, that's making them scared.
Well, and
I
then
do
you
their
almost have to
reviews. I'm the person
follow
doing
up.
their annual review, and I'm saying this. What are they going to? I don't think about that. I don't think like, man, I'm going to try to get this person fired. Not at all. But I'm just briefly irritated. But that person is like, oh no, like, no, another thing.
Maybe that's
Like, the thing to do is go sit down with them and say, hey, I noticed you keep putting this commit message in, and we've talked about how it's unhelpful. What's the deal? Is it hard for you to like, like what? How do we fix this? What's the deal? Let me invest in
maybe
you. It's a
let
much
me
better
invest
approach.
in you. I love that. Like,
Yeah.
and maybe that, honestly, maybe, make that idea of leadership is maybe our next topic. And
Okay. Even better.
how do we move from doing to leadership? Or
Mm,
the reality is even in doing the work, there's still leadership involved. And
true.
and honestly, as AI comes in and does more and more of the work for us, the things that are going to be left are the leadership, the inspiration, the making the decisions, the things that it's going to free us up to do the things that only we can do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I hope it works out that way.
Yeah, so we'll see. We'll talk about it a little more.
Cross my
We'll
fingers.
get a great topic together for next time. Dave, it's been
Sounds
awesome
good.
once again.
Yeah,
Thank you.
same.
And
Absolutely great talking to you.
thanks, everybody. You have a great day.